Most people never fail because they aren't capable. They fail because they listen to the wrong voices, the doubt, the negativity, the fear. This podcast is about people who figured out how to rise above the noise. Welcome to Above the Noise, hosted by me, Justin Lusk. In a world full of opinions and distractions and constant noise telling us who we are and how we should live and how we should do things, this podcast is about rising above it. Each episode, we're going to sit down with real people in business, faith, family, and community to talk about their journey, the wins, the struggles, the lessons learned, and the mindset that helped them push through the noise to build something meaningful. These real conversations are about life, leadership, success, and the habits that shape who we become. Now let's get started. Before we do, full disclaimer. The conversations in this podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing discussed here should be considered legal, accounting, financial, investment, or professional advice. Always consult with a qualified professional regarding your specific situation. The opinions shared by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or affiliated organizations. Let's get started. So question, how does an engineer go from a structured job of what some would consider safe and secure to jumping into being a financial advisor where everything goes based on you building your own business?
Yeah, that's a long story. And I'm sure you don't want to hear the start to finish version of it. Ultimately, I'm going where God has led me. So when I was backing way up, when I was 18, 19 years old, I was turned on to Dave Ramsey by my parents as they were, as I was figuring out how to adult. They made sure that I was listening to him when I had the opportunity to. I learned a lot of money fundamentals through him. Was always good with numbers, liked putting things together. It's even more fun taking things apart. That led me down the engineering path and went to school for engineering, went to work at Nissan as a process engineer, and was always that guy on the side that was helping people with their budgets or, they're asking me about their 401k and all that kind of stuff. I had a financial advisor when I was 25, and that was with Edward Jones. And so I've always seen the value in having a financial advisor, someone to just kind of help guide and keep you on path as you go through life. About, 20 years into that, my advisor started talking to me about sitting on the other side of the table, basically saying, you're sitting on the wrong side of the table. I think you should be on my side, and I think you'd be good at it. So that's ultimately what started the conversation. The next couple of years was full of internal wrestling and stress of, should I, shouldn't I? Because there is a lot of stability, perceived stability and consistency in a salary job. So my wife and I talked about it. It all culminated one day. My wife she asked me, like, are you praying about this? Like, yeah, I'm praying about it.
Yeah, but, just throwing it up.
Right.
Probably not.
She was like, no. You didn't hear me. Are you praying about this?
Right.
Like, no.
You gotta love my wife. She keeps me honest too. So that's so good deal.
So that fast forward into, then I started really with intention praying, like, if this is where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do, then I need you to make it clear, because the engineer in me sees black and white, and I don't.
Yeah, I work with a lot of engineers. I know how y'all's minds work. I tell people sometimes I missed it. I think I missed it for some reason somehow, but that's how I kind of connect. So I understand that black and white completely.
So for the sake of time, I'll just say that it became very clear to me that this was a risk, but a risk that God wanted me to take. And I did it, kind of closed my eyes and said, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to trust you. And I jumped, and that was almost 5 years ago. And it's been fantastic ever since. I've absolutely loved every minute of it.
Awesome. So let's go back then, and let's unpack a little bit of that. You said kind of when you was 18, What about even before we say 18? Because one thing that I like to highlight within the show is just kind of coming over obstacles that you may have faced and stuff like that. So if we go back to your childhood, was there anything that you can kind of pinpoint out that maybe was a challenge to you, whatever it may be, and how you potentially would have overcome that obstacle at that time, and when you look back at that young person, teenager, kid, whatever, what lessons you learned from that?
Oh gosh, a challenge as a child.
Yeah.
In
Did you always, before you, you said 18, you started listening.
Yeah.
When you was a kid, though, did you know, like, hey, I'm going to be an engineer, or were you pretty open and, did it bounce around or?
Oh, I had no idea what I wanted to be.
Okay.
I actually I remember taking an aptitude test in high school that said I should be in sales. I was like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
When you think about sales, since we were both in it, just curious, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about
Used
sales?
cars.
Used cars.
Salesman is the used car, man, if I got a deal for you, stuff. And I was like, that's not me.
Yeah.
And here I sit 25 years, 30 years later.
And I think it's come a long way, but I think that's what a lot of people relate sales to.
Yes.
And from that standpoint, I think it's, when you work with someone, if you're on the right side of sales, you're looking for their best interest.
That's right.
And I think there are some people on the wrong side of sales that are just looking for the paycheck as far as when it comes to that. So you took the aptitude test and it was like, you should go into sales. And you were like, nah, let's not right now.
Not doing that. Not doing that. So I enjoyed, mechanically inclined, and started looking at, well, what can I do with that? I took a drafting class in high school because, the vocational classes available to high school kids today are so much broader than, we had like gym or drafting or band. Like that was it. So yeah, I took drafting, really enjoyed it. And was pretty easy to see, the careers linked to a class or to a class like that. Mm-hmm. And engineering was one of those. Looked and like, oh, engineers make pretty good money. I should probably try that. And that's where it started. Like, I like drafting. Engineers do drafting. That was back in the 90s. Engineers make pretty good money. Let's try that. And if it changes, it changes. But it never did.
Yeah. So when you, and I'm going to come back, you think on that challenge question as a kid.
Yep.
But I'm going to come back to that later. So when you went into college into engineering, it's obviously no easy path to go, right? There's a lot of people get discouraged. Was there a point when you were in college and you were taking your engineering classes, you was going towards that path that it kind of just got overwhelming and you were thinking, was this really the path I want to go?
So I married my high school sweetheart.
Okay.
So I was dating my future wife throughout college and got married 3 months after I graduated, 5 months after I graduated.
You got to get a job.
So the overwhelming, of being in college was overshadowed by, I don't have time to get slowed down. Like, right. I got to get this done and get out of here because I got to get married. Yeah. I got to go be an adult.
Yeah, bills are going to come due. You got to figure out the way to pay for them.
I was living at home. I went to MTSU. I graduated MTSU in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and was living in Smyrna, which was about 30 minutes down the road. So I was living at home, I wasn't planning the wedding. My wife was planning the wedding. I was trying to get through.
You were just supposed
college.
to show up.
That's right.
That's what I did.
That's right. I did that very well.
Yeah.
I showed up.
Yeah. Yeah, I stayed out. You don't want my opinion. I'll just be there. I'll just be there.
That's right.
So awesome. So you were in a serious relationship, getting married. So when you graduated, when you got a job, when you guys got married, were both of you working or was it just you?
She was still in school.
Okay.
So she was 1 year behind me. She graduated either 1 or 2 semesters after. 1 semester after we got married. So for the very beginning, it was all on me. It was a short road. We knew that she was going to graduate, get an adult job, but there was a short period where it was all on me.
Yeah. So I remember in those first periods of marriage, the first few years, especially in a situation like that, you're one household income, and there's a lot of, I think, speaking for myself, like you have these expectations of what you want to do, what you would like to do, but sometimes the money constrains that.
Yes.
So can you think of any time that it was like, man, this is just hard. Like my parents told me about this and they told me about real life, but real life is really setting in now that I'm out of school and I'm married.
As a young married adult, one of the more difficult things for us were vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to figure out vehicles.
You just listen to Dave Ramsey, so you
That's
better be
right.
paying cash.
That's right. So our first vehicle, we took out a loan on because we were just out of college, we were just married, and we were busted broke.
Yeah, that's what America says to do is go get a car. You got a college education, go reward yourself.
But it was like, we're going to minimize the damage, right? Not going to go drive a brand new, I don't even remember what they cost back then, but I do remember we took out an $8,000 loan on it was a 1990 Nissan Maxima. And we were married in 99. So this was a 10-year-old vehicle that we were taking out. At the time was a minimal loan. But that was all of our friends, right? We got a big boy, big girl job, whatever. We've got a brand new car, and we're surrounded with people that we were the I don't want to label myself as weird, but in Dave Ramsey speak, right?
Right.
Weird is normal for him, right? So we were the weird ones.
Yeah. Did you feel pressured? Because I think a lot of people, social media is a prime example of people who compare themselves to other people. So like in that circumstance, you guys were kind of abnormal in that aspect that you didn't go get the brand new car. You got the 9-year-old car. Did you feel though, maybe kind of pressured to like, hey, we're not, how come they have all of this and we're doing it this way?
There was certainly a sense of self-inflicted, but a sense of like, we are not as successful. Right. So, we as a society oftentimes define success with material goods. So look at them. They're super successful. Look what they have. They must be really successful. And at the time, we were making wise financial decisions, the wisest we could with the means that we had. But on paper or on the surface, it looked like we were not as successful as the people that we were running around with.
And it's a challenge, it's a challenge. I think sometimes people, unfortunately, they do have to potentially break ties because, sometimes you get into those relationships that you maybe think are healthy with friends, only to realize it's leading you down a different path, a wrong path. And things, and that's hard, it's hard. But unfortunately, like you said, a lot of people relate success to materialistic things, related to the money. And I know a lot of super successful people, and their success is in their happiness. Their success. I remember when I was working at the bank, and you would see these little old ladies come in, and they were tickled to go to the senior center and get their $2.50 lunch. You wouldn't know they did have money.
Yep.
They didn't, but the money was just there. It was just kind of that guidance, protection. They were still frugal, but they were still tickled to death because they had friends they could relate to, and their success was different than driving up in a brand new car. They drove up in the 20-year-old Oldsmobile.
Yep.
And so it's interesting how people define success. Jessica and I talked about it on our podcast about how it's changed our minds over time. I think a lot of young people define success by money. And you and I have probably met a lot of what people would define as successful people, and they do have a lot of money, but they're not happy.
That's right.
They're not happy. They're miserable. They work too much. They don't get to spend time. Their marriages fail. And there's just a lot of downfall to chasing the materialistic things out there. So
yeah, I was watching a TED Talk yesterday about a Harvard study indirectly Harvard study on happiness, and they were saying once your basic material needs are met, food, shelter, clothing, increase in money does not correlate at all to an increase in happiness. Somebody making $75,000 a year suddenly starts making $75 million a year within 6 to 12 months, their happiness will not have changed.
Yeah, they've kind of had that rush.
Yeah.
They've done what they wanted to do, but then they realize, money can only get you so much.
That's right.
Yeah. So, so you started the engineering path.
Yep.
Right. Now, I know you were with your former employer for quite a while, but where did you, when you started out at that entry level job, were you able to stay with one employer, or did you move around sometimes with just different engineering positions?
Yeah. So I started as I was in college. I worked a summer co-op with a company called Worthington Precision Metals. They're not around anymore. And immediately following college, I hired in with them as a manufacturing engineer. Very small. They were a tertiary supplier. So they were supplying the secondary and primary suppliers for Ford. We were making little components that go inside the power steering pump and stuff like that. Did that for almost a year, and that time frame was when Nissan was going through a restructuring in the late 90s when Carlos Ghosn came in as the CEO, and the Smyrna plant started hiring. So, and that was, Nissan is employing 7,000 people in your backyard, and they start hiring, and they're looking for engineers.
And you're like,
I'm applying.
I mean, that's a great, I'm
applying. So I hired in as a stamping engineer, a process engineer in the stamping plant. Spent 4 or 5 years there. Went to the manufacturing side and was a floor supervisor for 2 or 3 years. And then the Deckard facility, which is an hour and a half down the road, is where they make all of the internal combustion engines. They were launching a forging plant where they forge the crankshafts that go in the engines. They needed help with that. So I went down, thought, well, I've got stamping experience. They're looking for help down there. Went down to Deckard and stayed there for 14 more years. I think I was 20. My math may or may not add up exactly. I was with Nissan total of just over 20 years. About 14 of those were in the Deckard facility.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to ask you that from the standpoint on that engineering background, because it started with the whole sense of security, right?
Yep.
And so in your mind, when you started in engineering and you were there for, you was Nissan 20 plus years and you was the other company there for a few years. So you almost, I know a lot of times you probably get to that point of security, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about your transition over into being a financial advisor. So when you were there in the engineering, did you ever think at that point, did you think, I'm going to stay here, it's nice, it's safe, it's comfortable, and I'm going to stay here my whole career? Or did you always think, oh, maybe I'll go do something else?
No. From the jump, it was, I'm retiring from this place.
Yeah. I
had told my financial advisor when I was at Nissan, like, I'm going to be here, I'm going to retire. My goal was to be able to retire at 55. And there was never any discussion about leaving Nissan. It was always going to be, I'm riding this all the way to the end.
And so from now kind of transitioning over, and you told us the synopsis there at the front, what kind of potential, we know that your wife kept you straight and told you need to pray about it, right? And I know, just knowing you, faith is a huge part of your life on that. But in comes with that, even when we pray, we also have another voice in our head. Mm-hmm. How did you face the challenges, whether it was the voice in your head, the colleagues at work, possibly the family, the friends, when you're like, hey, I think I'm going to throw my career of mechanical engineering out the window and I'm going to go be a financial advisor? How'd that go?
So I didn't talk to very many people about it.
Probably smart.
I mean, more people you get, the more opinions you get, right?
Exactly. Everybody's got an opinion, you know?
I was very close and very transparent and very communicated pretty intensely with my wife. she ultimately was the one that, I was, that, to put it in the deep end of the pool metaphor, right? I was the one standing on the edge of the pool, like, I'm going to jump. Seriously, I'm going to jump. But I wasn't jumping. And
Yeah.
she was the one that came up and said, listen,
Shoved you in the back.
you have to do this, right?
Yeah.
So she was the one that said, this is what you're meant to do. This is what you're supposed to do. And the most important thing was, she said, I support you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's go do this. It wasn't, well, I mean, if you want to, I guess you can.
Right.
It wasn't that at all. It was, we are going to do this. I am going to support you. She went and got a job. You're like, while we're going through this instability and this uncertainty period, I'm going to go work so I can provide the consistency. And so it was the decision. She helped make the decision much easier because she told me that she's got my back 100%. She's contributing to the workload or the stress of the house by, providing when I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to. So from that standpoint, it wasn't overly difficult because Dina, my wife, was just over the top with supporting me.
Yeah, which that's awesome. So, and as well though, I mean, because you guys have a daughter,
yes,
right? So I'm sure as the provider of the house, like there's more to think about than just you,
Oh, absolutely.
And so I'm sure that was weighing on you from that standpoint. And it's huge when you have a spouse that is supportive in that. I think that's a great story because a lot of times people make their own decisions without consulting. A lot of times I consult my wife. I want her to tell me no. and sometimes she don't, and I keep probing her because I want her to tell me no.
Yeah.
And just like you, though, I mean, she's like, if you think this is the best, pray about it. But if you think this is the best, I trust you. I trust what you're going to do. And so having that support, obviously. So let's talk family just a little bit.
Sure.
I know you're super proud of your daughter.
I am.
We talk a lot. So let's back up for potentially the people that are listening.
Okay.
And whether it's those that are maybe going to have a family or they already have a family. I've said this before, man, each person has their own parenting styles. And you don't know until you have yours, and a lot of times because people have opinions about how you should raise your kids.
Sure.
But just kind of walk us through the whole parenthood thing. Like when you had your daughter, what did you expect? What surprised you about it? And then just kind of how you, made the best out of, like, you can always improve parenting day by day.
Oh yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah. I'm no parenting expert. I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those, like,
I guess
we're having a baby. We're having a baby. Okay.
Yeah.
It was one of those, like, my nephew had their first child last week, just a few days ago. And I remember when I was talking to him, I remembered, like, when they took us from the nursery or whatever, and they put us in the car, and it was like, where's the manual that comes with this thing?
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm not ready to go home.
Yeah, nothing could prepare you for those diapers those first few weeks.
So my parents raised me with a overall philosophy of, we will trust you as long as you don't give us a reason to not trust you.
Right.
And if you will be clear with us and be honest with us, you'll be surprised with how much trust that gets extended to you.
Right.
And really, my wife and I, Dina and I, used that philosophy with Avery, and it turned out really well. I remember in high school asking my parents, like, hey, I want to skip school today. And they said, your grades okay? They're great. You got any tests today? No. What are y'all going to do? Like, well, we're going to go to the mall and, hang around the food court and arcade and whatever, because that's what you did in the early 90s. And they're like, okay. So it was, and that's just an example of,
yeah, no.
I didn't say, hey, I'm going to Adam's house. Adam said he's going to Curtis's house. Andy said he's going to, and then we all just disappear. We were up front, or at least I was up front. I don't know about them. I won't speak for them, but I was up front with like, hey, I'm going to skip school. I'm not going to be there today, but here's why and here's what we're going to do and all that kind of stuff. And so we raised Avery kind of with that philosophy of like, just keep us in the loop, be honest with us. And she's a good kid.
Yeah. And I think that's a great philosophy. I've told my kids that. I wish my oldest is 16 now. His mom works at the school, and so we know a lot of things that go on, and we tell him that. We inform him of that. But he's good, and I told him, we hear about things that happen, and I say, you have my trust until you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have a reason for me to not trust you.
Right.
And so, I think that's big. Unfortunately, today we see a lot of parents just not raising their kids. They're allowing social media, they're allowing the iPhones and the tablets and whatever to interfere with true parenting that's out there. But I'm not, I'm responsible for my kids. I have a lot of opinions about. I don't want to get into that. I'll get into trouble. But at the end of the day, we're all responsible. So now let's talk about you took the leap, you took the jump, you kept it quiet, so you didn't hear a lot. I could imagine. So what about when you did make the decision? When you made that decision, and then you're telling your boss and you're telling people at work, did you find that there were some that were like, man, he's crazy. Like, he's been doing this for 20 years. He makes a great income, and he don't know how that's going to turn out.
So if I did, I don't remember them.
Okay.
They were not the loud voices that I heard. And this is nuts, but this is God. When I made my announcement, if you will, at work, turned my notice in, from the day that I said, hey, I'm leaving, I'm going to go to Edward Jones, I'm going to learn to be a financial advisor, and I'm going to open up my own business in Tullahoma. From that day until the day that I left Nissan, which was a couple of weeks, 2-week notice kind of thing, I had over 60 people approach me. 60 people approach me and say, hey, when you get started, I want you to give me a call. And that was just, it floored me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a pretty good
me.
kickstart to starting up.
Now, in hindsight, 5 years later, some of those people were just being nice.
Sure.
Right? Because I got started and I called them and they were like, Curtis, who? But in that moment, that's what I needed.
Yeah.
Right? Because that was confirmation of, okay, maybe things are going to be okay. There's still a lot of hard work to do. But maybe this isn't just me chasing a shiny object. Maybe this is, there's some substance behind this. And I feel like it was God saying, I told you I got you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and talking about that, you had a lot of people. How many people do you think that they feel restricted from the safety and security of a job they've been working for many, many years?
Well, I mean, how many people have you talked to that have said, they're sick and tired of working where they're at? It's rare that people are like, no, I go to work because I love going to work.
Yeah.
And now I can say I go to work because I love going to work. I absolutely love what I do. And when you meet someone, it's like, I cannot wait to get to, whatever stage so I don't have to work. I don't ask because I don't want to make the situation awkward. But, everything in me is like, well, if you don't like it, why don't you leave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I talk to a lot of people, and it's like, man, I should have done this a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I know within my career when I started, like I said, my wife, she's kind of had to keep me honest a lot of time. I've had some very random ideals. But I mean, there was the point that it was scary because you go from salary, you go from knowing that paycheck's going to be there to pretty much doing your own business, and you're responsible. Right. But it's like you said, a lot of people, they find that enjoyment. I think there's a different, when you go self-employed, when you go like we are, when we work for larger companies, we're still self-employed because it's based on our performance. I think you get more out of people when you do that, right? You got to go kill it. If you want to eat, you got to go kill it. And I think a lot of times when we look at the labor industry in general, and you see some of these mass layoffs, well, it's because they've done a strong case study to show these people aren't being efficient for me, you know? And then those people kind of, they tail off and they make right because they got laid off. But if you got to go make the money, if you go self-employed and, if you don't close the deal, if you don't get the deal done, or if you don't get the accounts or whatever it is, you're not going to have any food on the table. So, well, awesome. So let's talk about the whole financial advisor role. You go and you're doing that. Tell me about, because you said 5 years ago, right?
Yep.
So 5 years ago, so we had COVID in 2020. So we're coming probably kind of toward the end of COVID.
I was the first hire in this area post-COVID.
Post-COVID.
Yeah. So I started talking to the recruiter in January of 2020. She called me in like March and said, "Hey, there's this, like, I don't know exactly what this is, but we're not hiring right now because this COVID thing's probably going to be a couple of weeks." Okay. And then a year later.
Yeah. So, and because the funny thing, once again, on security, I know when I was doing mortgages at the time, who would have ever thought that large corporations, Nissan, Disney World, like all of these places would have shut down?
Right.
I think that opened a lot of people's eyes to be like, yeah, this is not necessarily guaranteed safe and secure. That's because right. If this can cause them to shut down and I'm out of pay and I'm doing this versus if I'm self-employed, I would have never thought that would have been the case. I had clients that were Nissan employees and we get to closing and they're like, "I just got furloughed." I'm like, "When are you going back?" "We don't know." Mm-hmm. And my brother, he always told me, because I think we also pride ourselves in what we do, right? And we pride ourselves, well, they can't do it without me. I'm so important. My brother told me one time, it was one of the first jobs I had. He said, I was nervous. I didn't want to leave the guy. He was good to me, but I was working a lot. And I was just so nervous about it. My brother told me, he said, "Justin, let me tell you something. They were doing that job before you came along, and that job will continue after you leave." And so it's kind of an eye-opener to me, it's like, I'm not as important as I think I am. And that's the way it'll go. So midst of COVID, getting out there, how did that go for you? Because it was still a very odd, touchy situation. No pun intended, you couldn't touch, but just in general, because in our profession, relationships are huge. When you're advising someone, when you're looking to earn their business. So kind of tell me how you started and how you built your business now 5 years down the road, with having those obstacles in your way that you necessarily couldn't take someone to eat just as free without a mask in front of your face.
Right. So by the time I went through all of the training, took all the securities tests and got all the licenses and all of that stuff, it was November 1st of 21. So COVID's still very real, but the shutdowns were minimal at that point in time. So November of 21, I get out there with like, "Okay, go get it." What do you mean, go get it?
What do I do? Where do I go? What are you talking about?
I mean, I understand how stocks and mutual funds and all that stuff work now. That's great. But when you say go get it,
right?
So I got to. I learned in pretty quick order. This is not a selling a stock, selling a mutual fund, selling a bond or anything kind of game. Not for me. I'm selling myself. Mm-hmm. Right. I am in the relationship game. So investments is the medium in which I work, but what I do is create, procure, and manage, take care of relationships. So if I can convince people that I'm acting in your best interest, I want to know your name. I want to know your wife's name. I want to know your kids' names. I want to know their birthdays, because all of that stuff's important to me. I want to know what's important to you. And I want to help put a plan together to help make sure that you achieve all of that. Then everything else takes care of itself. So it's very difficult work. It's very rewarding work, though, because, I get plenty of no's. Anybody in sales is going to get more no's than they get yeses. And if they tell you otherwise, they're lying to you.
It's a numbers game. I mean,
it is absolutely a numbers game. But the yeses that I get, the people that I get to work with, and the stuff the things that they entrust me with, they allow me to walk beside them through some of their biggest and proudest, moments. They get to walk away from their job for, retirement, or they finally get their vacation home, or they get their kids through college without, a huge burden of debt or anything like that. And I get to walk with them. I'm not doing the heavy lifting. They're doing the heavy lifting, but they allow me to walk that journey with them. And it is awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But I got a little bit off track. Starting out, it was just phone calls. Phone calls. Those 60 people heard from me a lot.
Yeah. Was there a point where you're like, man, that phone is so heavy? Like,
oh, absolutely.
I don't want to.
Absolutely.
That noise in your head's be like, they're about to cuss you out. They're about to da-da-da-da-da, and you just didn't want to. How'd you get through that?
So the advisor my financial advisor that convinced me to come into this role had told me, outside of work, I'd love to do triathlons. And I had recently completed Ironman Florida, which is...
You're an overachiever, man. That's
2.4 mile swim, 112 miles on bike, and 26 miles running back to back.
I'm exhausted with you just telling me how much it is.
It was actually a lot of fun. Or I had a good time anyway. But he had told me, anybody that can submit themselves to that kind of punishment can get
no problem.
Can get through the head trash of being told no all day
Yeah.
long, right? You submit to the process and you trust the process, which is what training for a race is, right? It's like, I'm going to do this and it's going to hurt and it's probably not going to make sense in the moment, or at times it won't make sense, but I trust that it's going to produce a good outcome. And he said, you're doing that on the race side. We just need to teach you how to do that on the financial advisor side.
Yeah.
And I listened to him, and he wasn't wrong.
Yeah. Well, I saw a video the other day, and it said 25% of people will like you or love you. 25% of people will not like you. They'll hate you for whatever reason.
Yep.
Really no reason. And the other 50% don't care. So why not focus on the 25% that like you? And I was like, wow, because we want, I'm a people pleaser, right? I like for a lot of people to like me, but if I could key in on the 25% that really like me, then it would probably make my life a lot better. So with that, you were able to establish and build your portfolio as far as that goes, and now you're up and running. So in my world, it's most common thing I get asked, which is irritating, is I don't even know somebody's name. I don't even know their circumstance. And I get a text or I get a phone call that says, "What's your rate?" I'm like, I don't know. Like, it could be this, it could be that. It just, the answer is it depends. So from your standpoint, is there that thing that you're just like, that you would want people to understand? Like, somebody call you back, like, "Hey, how much can you get me on this money?"
That's how much money are you going to make me?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the market's going to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know how much risk you're willing to take. I don't, but that's it can be an aggravation on my side. I think it all stems from a misunderstanding on the client side of what we do, because they see us as investment managers. We make money. We help them make money, and they just call them like, "Hey, how much can I expect to make with you?" And that's a part of what we do, but that's not for me, it's what do you want to get out of life?
Right.
Right. And what have you done thus far? What can we do with what you've already managed to accomplish? And provided that we know what you want to continue to accomplish, how can we put that together in a plan or a process that ensures that you get through the next 25, 35, 45 years and you're achieving everything that you wanted? Getting returns is part of that, but it's one cog in the wheel that has, a
That
lot of
keeps
different.
everything rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those folks that are just like, how much you gonna make me?
They probably watch too many TikTok videos.
They don't typically I won't say they don't make good clients. They don't often become clients.
Right. Yeah. And, the challenge, so technology is good, but also with the ongoing increase of social media, the internet changed the game altogether.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good information. There's a lot of bad information,
Yep.
And we live in a world that companies heavily invest in marketing, and that marketing is not always accurate. I got an email yesterday, or I got a text yesterday with a piece of paper that was, someone sent me a photo of it and said, "Hey, how can we get this?" And I said, "Well, you can't. It's called bait and switch." But when you have that, what would you advise for anyone that's listening? Because a lot of times, they look up and they're scrolling their Facebook, or they're just looking, and you get these kind of very intriguing returns on your money and high risk. And, the way that you're talking there is like, people need to understand, you need to look at more instead of the short term, like how can we plan for your future, your kids' future, your retirement to live comfortably. But what would you tell the ones that kind of fall into that trap of, well, I can manage it myself, and I can go on here, and I can do this and this? What would you kind of tell them that they need to be smart about?
Yeah. So the biggest feedback I think I would give the TikTok folks that are getting advice through TikTok is fully understand what you're doing, fully understand the everything that's being pitched. And I have an example, a client that came to the office and said, "Hey, I want you to see this video. Tell me what's going on here."
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember all of the details, but I remember enough. It was, we're going to take $150 a month and we're going to put it into XYZ investment and for 10 years. And then when we retire at 65, it's going to be however much money it was.
Mm-hmm.
And she was asking, like, how does that work? And I got my financial calculator out, put my nerd hat on, and walked through it. And what he was leaving out was the $150 a month investment continued throughout the entire life. So what the video portrayed was, we're going to do this for 5 years or 10 years or whatever it was, and then we're going to stop. And then 40 years from now, it's going to be this huge balloon of money.
Right.
And in reality, what it was you make that monthly payment for your entire life. And if you do, then the math all worked out. Like, he's just leaving a very key piece of information out and making it seem like this is an easy.
Yeah.
So and I see that a lot with videos. It's not necessarily an untruth. It's just an inaccurate portrayal.
Right. Yeah. So let me ask you this, man, over the last couple of years, AI has really taken off.
Yes.
So is your company, do y'all do anything with AI? Do you see, like, once again, if you go back to social media and they're like, oh, you can use this program and it keeps you alert with these stocks that are trading this and that, and it's an AI generated-ish type platform. So how are, in the financial advisor world, I mean, I know every large company is using it to an extent. So how are financial advisors potentially using AI, and what's your thoughts personally on AI?
Yeah, so we do have some AI software embedded into our platform. Excuse me, to my knowledge, it is not used for generating stock picks or investment suggestions or anything like that. What I personally use AI for is primarily note taking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's embedded
It's huge.
to, if we meet on Zoom, I'm going to use AI to summarize the meeting with the client's permission. Once they give me permission to do so after the meeting, AI is used to generate, hey, here's everything that you talked about. Here's your follow-up items. Here's, your next steps and all of that kind of stuff. And to that extent, it's hugely successful or hugely beneficial for me, because I can have an hour-long meeting with someone, and if I need to be present in the meeting,
Right.
and my presence means my note-taking is going to be limited. So if we get down a rabbit hole and I get lax on my note-taking, there may be a question asked, or I'll get with you, I'll send that to you tomorrow, and I forget to write that down. So AI is capturing all of that after the meeting. It's generating the summary and saying, hey, here's all of your follow-up items. So it's made me more efficient with client interactions, but I'm not using AI for stock picks or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. And man, it seems like once you find one AI tool, then it's modified with another one, and it just keeps on going. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to ask you, first of all, I'll come back to the challenge question. Did you ever think about anything, or was your childhood just smooth and sweet, no challenges?
My childhood, I don't recall just
you don't remember it. You've already outgrown
having a really tough childhood. The hardest
Did you play
part.
Sports or anything?
I played soccer.
Okay.
I played soccer from, probably 8 years old or so, all the way through high school. Was never the star.
Yeah,
I ran fast, but man, I couldn't kick. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a soccer ball. So I was a defender. I would run the other team down and knock them over. And
I was. I told on the other one. I was 4'11" going into my freshman year. Thought I was going to be a basketball player. The coach kind of let me know whenever I didn't make the team that was not the case. So all right, well that's all right. That's good though. I mean, that's good that you had a good childhood. So a few rapid fire questions for you.
Shoot.
What's your favorite movie?
Tommy Boy.
Tommy Boy. Okay. All right. What's your favorite restaurant?
Oh, rapid fire. E-Meals in Tullahoma has been probably our most frequented here lately.
I haven't been there. I need to get down there.
It's a good one.
And go. Yeah, I've heard it is. I've just never been. What's your favorite artist or music genre?
Ooh, what day of the week is it? It depends.
Okay, variety, huh?
Yeah. So I was. I've got CarPlay in my truck, and Apple. I've got Apple subscription, and it's got Curtis's station. Like, oh, this will be nice. Let's see what Curtis's station is.
Yeah.
Based on what I listen to, and it played some Christian rap, followed by Red Hot Chili Peppers. A little bit of Pearl Jam. There was a Rage Against the Machine song off in there, followed by some contemporary Christian.
Yeah. So it sounds like our stations may match up. We were going down the road the other day, me and Briggs, my youngest, and I had it on Justin's station, and I just kept hitting the forward button. I wasn't in the mood for a lot of stuff, and he's like, "Dad, you don't have a lot of good songs on your station." He said, "You either have like country songs or gospel Christian songs or songs with bad words in them." I was like, well, I'm fast forward the bad words when shouldn't show up there, son. Okay. I mean, yeah, every now and then you get the artist that has the song, but what's cool is I haven't been there. Are you a big concert goer?
I want to be, and I enjoy going to them. I don't frequent them enough. They're really expensive these days.
I know. I don't either. We have been to the caverns, not actually in the caverns, but it's cool to have that around this location.
Yeah.
Is to have the caverns. But we went to a 90s kickback return, whatever it was, tour like a year or two ago. It was pretty cool. It was outside, which you didn't realize in the 90s they were great. But then when you went, and they were still good, but you realize they were one-hit wonders. Like Vanilla Ice was the headliner. Still love Vanilla Ice. Like that was my jam back in the day. Unfortunately, Coolio, he was there. That was literally, he passed away a couple of weeks later.
I was going to say, that was one of his last performances.
Yeah, right. So if you could go out to dinner right now, fine steakhouse, whatever, any guest, present, past, living, non-living, who would you sit down at the dinner table with and eat dinner with?
Can I do it with Jesus?
Yeah, sure.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, one day we will.
Yeah, I hope so.
one day, kind of takes you back. We could go down the rabbit trail. The Last Supper, and they had the opportunity to do that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of explore one day, because this life is it's here. That's why we talked about the material things are going to vanish away when it comes to that. Yep. So, are you still cycling? You still riding a bike?
I still cycle. I run. I coordinate a running group in Tullahoma. We meet Tuesdays at 5 a.m. So we run 4 or 5 miles every Wednesday, and then when the weather holds here lately, Mother Nature's been drinking here lately. So
ain't that the truth? We had 3 inches of snow Monday, and it's supposed to be 80 tomorrow.
Right. So when the weather's good, we usually ride about 40 miles or so on Tuesday afternoons, and then between 50 and 60 miles on Saturdays. So I'm getting somewhere around 100 miles a weekend on the bike and 4 or 5 miles running a week.
Oh man, you're such an overachiever. So if you're talking to that listener out there and they're that young person,
yes,
what would you go back and tell Curtis of 18, 19, 20? What would you go back and tell him?
So the thing that I tell young folks today is really what I needed to hear then. Fortunately, I had Dave Ramsey in my ear, because everybody wants financial security, and they're trying to do it as quickly as they can. And the best way to do it is over a period of about 40 years. And man, that does not look sexy, and that does not look like fun when you're 18 years old.
No.
So exercise that muscle of disciplined saving when you're young is what I try to tell young folks. Like your returns are not as important as the fact that you're trying to develop a habit of just, I made $100 and I put 10 of it back. I am living on less than I make. I am saving some money. Returns will become important at some point, but your returns, what you're getting off of your $10 a week that you're saving isn't what's going to get you the prize. It's the consistency and the discipline of saving that money.
Yeah.
Because we are raising a YOLO generation.
Oh, it's completely, yeah. I've told my wife before, I've sent her kind of pictures of people who are, I guess what you could say, free spirits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, if I just had an ounce of that sometimes, that would be nice. But I guess my biggest splurge is now as a dad is like making sure my yard's good, and I bought a new lawnmower yesterday. I was pretty happy about that, so that's good, because it's crazy that I'm sitting in these shoes, because I remember being that 18, 19, 20-year-old,
mm-hmm.
but the time value of money is a real thing.
Absolutely.
And, I was fortunate. I listened to the Dave Ramsey. I think Dave's got a lot of great principles. I think a lot of principles are super extreme,
mm-hmm.
But he keeps you to the common sense method.
That's right.
Don't spend more than you make. And we could, he's done a lot better than I have. So, but I think there's some things you just give and take when it comes to that. But similar, I was fortunate that I really wanted to go get a new truck when I graduated.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about a 9-year-old Maxima. Like I had a F-150 set in mind, and marriage happened, and it took a long time before I got that truck. So, well, awesome. So I like your socks. You got some, I got my baseball socks on. It's baseball time. Give a shout out to the Whimsy Willow. If you want some socks, some crazy socks. So my wife
saw you got some UT orange socks with the Tennessee seal on them. That's pretty awesome.
Definitely some Tennessee socks in there. We don't carry anything but Tennessee type stuff like that. So if you're sitting in my seat, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm looking to get more podcast guests. So hopefully you'll connect me. You've already connected me with some great people. But if there's anybody out there that I could potentially get on this show, famous sports athlete, whatever it may be, politician, who do you think would be a cool guest to have on the show?
Who's the can't stop me guy? David Goggins?
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
You know what? Tell me about him.
I've told you about him before.
Okay.
He runs and he's yelling it all the time.
Oh yeah. Okay. So y'all are into the like the running stuff. I don't like to run unless somebody's chasing me. You know, I'll have to look him up, but that would be pretty cool. So if anybody's got any
Not to say
connections-
that you're not famous in and of itself.
Yeah,
but he might be a stretch.
I might have a few million more followers and views to go until we get there. But Curtis, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on and doing
Justin.
the podcast, man. It's always great to talk to you. Hopefully, there's some wisdom to shed to any potential young listener out there, because, man, I didn't have a clue. I went to school. I said this before I graduated in football. No clue what to do. God put me. I did not go to school thinking I'm going to be a mortgage originator. I didn't go to school thinking I was going to do podcast or anything like that. God directed those paths. I think that's super important. You got to have faith. I'm a big believer in faith. You are as well. And hey, man, it leads you to the path. And one of the things, in my phone right now, in my contacts, I've got a note, and it says, I believe the initial contact with a person has the ability to be a lifelong friendship. And so that's my philosophy, and I think that's one of the reasons I met you, man.
It's awesome.
So, all right, Curtis. Thanks, man.
Justin, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.